This is the Astrology and Tarot Show with Jessica Adams.
Thanks, Shane. Here is your psychic astrology covering May 11 to 17. If you want to go straight to your sign, pick this up on substack.com at the Astrology and Tarot Show. Now, do you have Taurus factors in your birth chart? This new moon at 25 Taurus falls on May 16, and this is such a new beginning for your money, your house, your business, your apartment or your charity. Perhaps your valuables. The old instability and uncertainty has gone. The chopping and changing is over. Your tarot card this week can be decoded at my website, jessicaadams.com. Aries, the Three of Pentacles. Taurus, the Ace of Wands. Gemini, the Hermit. Cancer, the Three of Cups. Leo, the Emperor. Virgo, the World. Libra, the Four of Pentacles. Scorpio, the Lovers. Sagittarius, Temperance. Capricorn, the Six of Cups. Aquarius, the Four of Wands. And Pisces, the Three of Wands. Aries, changes around you which you can do not much to prevent or control with your friend or the group, whether it's on social media or in the real world, will dominate this week. This should empower you if you use your willpower. The gauntlet is certainly being thrown down by the friend or the group or about them, and it does keep happening. This means going to places psychologically and emotionally which seem quite intense, a fair bit deeper than you're used to, but then a Pluto cycle can be like that. You have to ask yourself if you want to spend your life with social media, friendships, a social life, a team or a group which keeps you stuck in the past. This is actually quite a long cycle, Aries, and it's about slow but steady control over time, getting the reins back or sharing them with other people. And this may be a band or it may be a football team, for example. Pluto in Aquarius in your 11th house is worth a closer look, just because it is here for about 20 years. In astrology, this is always about the way that extreme power is shared and managed between people, and it can be almost nuclear levels of power. There are major questions here about how it's all going to work between you, whether it's a one-on-one friendship or whether you are dealing with a wider circle. At the moment, nothing is really resolved, as there quite clearly has to be a compromise, some sort of bargaining arrangement or a division of the way things are being held and who holds that power. At the moment, social media, for example, can be a place where it's all laid out pretty clearly on the computer or on your telephone. For that reason, you may want to be pretty savvy about what's actually being put in writing. However, you are all proceeding towards the middle of the year when so much will be sorted out. In fact, July and August look like a bridge to cross when you, he, she, or they can figure it out, at least for the moment, and in a way that will enable you to share the control more with self-control throughout the rest of the year. Taurus, sometimes you'll be so stuck or trapped perhaps with your financial, business, real estate or charity situation, at least until July, that you may want to take quite radical steps to change it. If you genuinely feel tied down by the way the bank is handling things, your real estate, your taxation, your business and so on, then you may be tempted to take a U-turn, which would be remarkable given that you have a reputation for being so slow and steady and circumspect with money. However, you are now in the Uranus in Gemini cycle, and you may well wake up to find yourself doing the last thing that you ever expected that you'd do, or being in a situation that you never thought would happen. Remember that the effect that you have on other people's budgeting could now start a chain reaction. So what you do does have an impact, and what happens is so unpredictable. In fact, this Uranus cycle is all the U words, as you've probably realised since the end of April. It is unusual, it is unique, it is unprecedented, and although you had a taste of it in 2025, what's happening now is one change after another. At the moment, having Uranus in Gemini in your second house is important in your birth chart as well, because you were born with the sun in Taurus in the same space, the second house, and it's really about values. It's about hanging new price tags on what is priceless, precious to the point where it could never be bought or sold. And that may be something very personal for you, or even spiritual. At the same time, your life budget, which is changing all the time, you look at it, is very much about what you own, earn, or owe. And of course, that does translate into numbers. But what's happening here is asking you to look at how free you are, how independent you are. And if there is something or someone around you which is holding you back, fencing you in, or boxing you in, then it may well be that it does not last the distance by August. Gemini. Uranus, the big change cycle, is now in Gemini, your own sign, in your zone of name and face, the shape of you, the style of you, and the reputation or title that you have. You cannot stay stuck with the labels that the world has put on you or remain in the box that you were in. And you shouldn't, especially if it means that you're not free to be who you are or to be who you want to be these days. But every successful revolution with a relaunch has to happen when the time is right. When the mood shifts around you and you realize that you're free to become a new version of yourself, then do take it. But if you force things because you can't wait, understand the upheaval that can come with this cycle. Some very famous Geminis are now in the zone with you. From Naomi Campbell to Mike Pence, you will see Geminis around the world going through this rebranding, relaunch, revolution until July. So how does Uranus and Gemini in your first house show up? Well, if you have anything in Aries in your birth chart, it's a double whammy because that's also the first house. And 2026 is quite clearly going to be the year that you have to step back and look at yourself as other people see you. There is a waiting game if you do have Aries factors in your chart. And there is also an escape from the real world where your face or profile is concerned. Whether you don't have Aries factors or you just don't know, you are still up for a fair amount of looking in the mirror, looking at your Google reflection online and so on, certainly looking at your social media profile and trying to understand what it is about your past that means that you don't feel free, all of which leads you to several Independence Days. Cancer. The difference in your financial position, your property situation, and your attitude to all that you own, earn, or owe will be very big indeed once this double cycle is over with Jupiter and Pluto, which has not happened in your lifetime. It begins on June 30, but really kicks in during July and August. Pluto is about empowerment, which comes from willpower, and control from self-control. And it is about the money or the real estate, the shares, the charity, the business or the possessions. At the same time, Jupiter, which moves signs for the first time in 12 years on June 30, is a big opportunity or solution. And these two together will change things a great deal in July and August. This strongly applies to your income, savings, debts, banking, lease, mortgage, insurance, possessions, investments, and anything else which rules your financial situation, and any person, like an accountant. So what does it mean to know that from June 30, Jupiter will be in Leo in your second house? Well, it's basically about your own life budget, and Jupiter always expands whatever it touches. The Romans knew Jupiter as best and greatest, and in fact, this planet in the history of astrology has a reputation right through China as well. Whenever astrologers watch Jupiter cycles, they always see growth, and growth there will be, which is where its reputation comes from regarding saving money or making it over the next 12 months. In fact, you have until the middle of 2027 to gain. July and August are important because there will be so many transits going through Leo and Aquarius across the zodiac at the same time. So this isn't just about your life budget, it's also about that of a partner or family member. And there may be a question here about a joint bank account, a mortgage, a will, inheritance, trust fund, and so on. As power is money, do all you can over the next 12 months to save or make it, because saving it or making what's there financially will also help you get the control. Leo, your friends and groups will be in focus during this new Uranus in Gemini cycle, and you will have your own agenda for change and progress, or find that you have to keep moving because the rest of your social circle, social media, or friendships seem keen on urging you to change course, or maybe they just want a departure from the norm. If you believe that your freedom from or through friends and groups is worth it, you may stage your own revolution over the next few weeks. Do watch out for the impact that you have on people if you do this, though, as if you cause too much upheaval, you will begin a domino effect that is completely unpredictable. What does it mean to have Uranus in Gemini in the 11th house? Well, in a way, the whole world is going through this cycle with you because the whole world is having Pluto in Aquarius in the 11th house of the group, social media, the community, and all major organisations and networks. People are discovering that people power is the only thing to bet on. And in your own life, people power is going to set you free, Leo. It will set you free in two ways. It may be that you have come to a point with a friend or a group where you need to be liberated from the past and from them. Or alternatively, it may be that you're about to discover just how independent you can be with a groundbreaking arrangement with a new group or a new friendship, which comes to pass by July. Virgo, Uranus in Gemini works best in your life when you go with the natural flow of progress and change in your career, your unpaid work, or your academic career. Sometimes technological advances or new inventions and ideas push everything and everybody forward. So maybe it's AI for you at the moment. That's your cue to go to the next level as well. Things are going to chop and change for years with AI and, in fact, all artificial intelligence. So staying above the crest of the wave is the right way to surf. If you try to stay where you were with your industry, your profession, your university or college, or your unpaid work, you will not only be out of time, you may find that in years to come, it's hard to make up for lost progress. So what does it mean to have Uranus in Gemini in your 10th house? Well, you don't have to be a professional astrologer to know that 2026 and 2027 are going to be years of dramatic change in terms of your ambition, your position, and your mission. And this is partly because you also have another cycle in your 6th house of work. Pluto's there. That means a change in the balance of power. You will see that at the start of 2027, when there will be a reshuffle in rights, roles, or responsibilities within your workplace, within the university or college, or elsewhere if you do unpaid work. That's a fair way off. Much faster and much more important is the new push for independence and freedom that you make or accept. It may be handed to you on a plate by the universe and you have to accept it, or you may be the one who wants to break with the past. In any case, the wheels are certainly going round faster than they were before. Libra. You are now on top of a deal, a bargain, or a compromise about cash, property, possessions, or just your values, which can't be bought and sold. You have to ask yourself on this cycle if you're ready to share the power and the control again, or even for the first time. That's how things could open up for you both or all of you, as a great deal depends on how free you are to use the moment, switch your position, and even take advantage of the occasional number juggling. This question about power and control is really about your children, anybody younger in the picture, or a partner. If you are single, not so much. If you are child-free, not so much. But in any case, this new cycle, which they call Uranus in Gemini, is also about foreigners and foreign people and how you deal with them when nothing is predictable anymore and everything changes so quickly. What you are also doing in May is coming to terms with the end of the predictably unpredictable, as the end of April marked the end of a cycle which began in 2018 when the money, the house, the apartment, the shares, the superannuation, the insurance and the rest of it was always surrounded by question marks. Coming to the end of that particular roller coaster has left you with new territory to fill. And it looks very much as though this week, and in fact the rest of May, perhaps June, will be devoted to coming up with a new life budget, which allows you to accommodate the new predictable with the capital P. Scorpio. Do dream bigger about July and August if you want a more fulfilling career, unpaid role, or an academic career. Which offers more? Jupiter is always about more, and this planet is about to move into your zone of success and status on June 30. If you have a full-time job or part-time job, this also applies. Alternatively, it may be your boss, your client, your staff, colleague, or people in your business who are opening doors to solutions. If you have been looking for an answer, the answer with Jupiter typically comes in a sweeping way, covering everything and everybody in one fell swoop. That is very likely in July and August if you have been searching. In other cases, you are ready to make the most of things that you did about 12 years ago. You may have planted acorns in your career, for example, or in your studies, which are now ready to grow into mighty oak trees. You have until the middle of 2027 to use this cycle, Scorpio, which can only happen once every 12 years. It's pretty well known in astrology, and people who go through it tend to get promoted, they get headhunted, they gain top jobs, they win awards, and so on. It's as much about status, being at the top of the social ladder, as it is about making it to the top of your particular profession or your special chosen subject area. But all Jupiter can really do is show you the ladder and show you the top of the mountain. It can't actually force you to go up it, Scorpio. So what you're doing over this next week or two in particular is looking at your chances, calculating the odds, and I think most astrologers would say that you find what happens between now and August irresistible. Sagittarius, the golden rule this week is to consider the repetitive issue at stake in your career, unpaid work, or academic career one more time. This is the South Node in Virgo, and it has been going round and round backwards in your zone of professional achievement, academia, and unpaid roles for quite a long time. From the last week of July, it stops, so that's not long to go. If this constantly rewound, replayed issue is daily, a bit like Groundhog Day, then at least you can alter your attitude towards it and feel more comfortable, because when you know what is coming next, you can use it to your advantage. Certainly Sagittarius, life 18 or 19 years ago is coming back to you. You have karma from that time, and there is a common theme. If you look, you will find it. If you are retired, have full-time home duties, or are between jobs, then the South Node will deliver the same scenario, but channel through other areas of your life. What it means to have the South Node in Virgo in your 10th house is that everything you do between here and July sets up the future as well. So in 18 or 19 years from then, you will find yourself looking back to 2026 and asking yourself why you couldn't have done more perhaps to get closure, or why others maybe didn't seek enough time to have closure with you. It's on that level. This is a strange part of your horoscope, which always goes backwards through the 12 zodiac signs, never forwards, and therefore you do have to be pretty retroactive and retrospective with it. But as you only have a few more weeks to go of this, use the time to do what you can to work on your attitude, become happier, maybe even a more successful human being. Capricorn. Uranus, the revolution in Gemini, in your sector of fitness, physical and mental health, is here to set you free. So it may be walking or swimming, but you may have your own ideas about fitness. It's equally true that you could sometimes reject and say no and break free from a form of exercise, fitness, a way of eating, drinking, and so on. So if you have been trapped by the gym, you may well give it the flick between here and August. It's on that level. And if vegetarianism is too restrictive, again, Uranus in Gemini can turn people into meat eaters. Whatever's going on for you, if you have anything in your birth chart in Virgo, then a stuck situation with your health, fitness, or well-being will end in the final week of July. Even if you don't, or you just don't know, you're still going through this major change cycle with your lifestyle and everything about it, from professional help to your own self-care, is in the change zone for quite a long time. Mental health is also part of this transit, and the common cold of mental health is depression and anxiety. What does it mean to have Uranus and Gemini in your sixth house? Well, this is a very unusual cycle. It happens in fits and starts. It involves a lot of chopping and changing, and the biggest changes happen when you least expect them, a bit like a lightning bolt or a storm. However, the rewards of this cycle are well known. It brings freedom, independence, and a break with the past if the past has kept you tied down. And this is where those questions about your health, your well-being, your fitness, and also your mental health come into it. If you have been overweight, for example, you may head towards the flab jab revolution. And what happens in July and August brings it all very close to home, whatever you're up to. Aquarius. Well, the planet Pluto reverses in your birth chart this week in the 11th house of friends and groups. And this is your birth chart that I'm talking about, not your Aquarian chart. Your sun in Aquarius is placed in the 11th house, and it's been there since you were born. So this is personal. Friends can be made, reshaped, or even lost in this cycle. And a good friendship is one where both of you realise that from time to time, one of you will become slightly concerned about the controls. If the axis of the friendship is based on power, then you will have to address the power. It may also be about the group. So you may, for example, be the lead singer looking sideways at your guitarist. It's on that level. However you play this, and whatever groups are involved, they may just be on social media, to have Pluto in Aquarius in your natal 11th house is to understand that this is a long game you're playing. Therefore, between now and certainly next year at the very least, you are going to be cutting deals and making compromises with the others, or particularly with one friend, so that you understand how to share the power together. It is nuclear level power. It's on that basis that you proceed. This is not a normal situation. Everything has become more intense and the stakes are higher than they used to be. That means handling with care. Fortunately, you're famous for being able to do just that. Pisces. Well, the power-packed Pluto issue in your life now will be secret, solitary, sensitive, delicate. It's not the kind of thing that you can tell a therapist about, or even your rabbi or your vicar, unless you feel that you've got the control. Even a psychic may not be told what's really going on. Pluto is an Aquarius in your 12th house, and the 12th house is where you are alone with your soul, your psyche, your psychology, and your spirit. If you look back over the last few months, you should be able to learn from any mistakes that you made or nearly made in terms of religion, counselling, psychics, tarot, spirituality, oracles, alternatives to religion like paganism, solitude, psychiatrists, and so on. By now, you should be familiar with the effect that this Pluto cycle is having on your inner emotional state. But what does it mean long-term to have Pluto in Aquarius in your 12th house? Well, you do have a bridge to cross in July or August, as we will be seeing oppositions then between Pluto and other factors in your chart. So this is really a bridge to cross that is coming about for you. It's early days yet, but you may know that you're going to have to make a dramatic choice. At the moment, it's very clear that if you don't feel that you are powerful or in control, you have some work to do on your inner self. And this is tricky because it's just about you by yourself and maybe with your God or whatever you believe in. At the very most, you would have one confidant, but no more than that. And yet somehow you have to work through this. One of the time-honoured ways of doing so is to turn to what speaks to your soul or your spirit, whether it is conventional religion or something that you can't put a name to, Pisces. And also in your birth chart, something really similar is going on. You have the node going through Pisces in your 12th house, which is where we find your sun. So in plain English, the final week of July is the sign off from a very repetitive situation. And from that point forward, you can be a lot more proactive about what you do when you're by yourself and what's going on with your inner life. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch up with you next week.